Alright guys, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about what most people probably have on their mind, and that is, are we in a cryptocurrency bubble? Well, I'm not going to answer it in a yes or no fashion. I'm going to talk about a couple of different things, and I like to use history in this conversation. I like to use common sense in this conversation, and I like to point out a few things that hopefully will shed some light into this decision of yours. Remember, don't ever take anybody's advice. Do your own due diligence, do your own homework, and come up with your own conclusions as opposed to just relying on somebody else, okay? So let's look at the current landscape of the cryptocurrency landscape, that is. If you've been following the last 2 weeks, obviously we had some very interesting times, with the Chinese ban on ICOs, certain exchanges shutting down in China trying to regulate everything to their own fashion, news from JP Morgan, etc. And this has caused a lot of, let's say, FUD inside the industry. Also, a lot of people who are new in the industry, this is causing certain speculators to be fearsome, which is FUD, and to sell their cryptocurrency. Now, that doesn't equate into the bubble, but just keep that on the periphery, what's going on currently. Now, if we're looking at the general rise in the crypto landscape in the last, let's say, year or two, there's no one to kid over here. It has exponentially grown, like literally by leaps and bounds. The value of Bitcoin, the value of Ethereum, the value of Litecoin, the value of Monero, the value of all these other decentralized currency has exponentially increased. And if we look at, for example, increases in real estate, if we look at increases in stocks, one can just view on historical facts where a certain commodity or an asset increase in a drastic, let's say, trajectory. What goes up must come down is the motto. That's not necessarily true all the time, but if you look historically, even in Bitcoin, from the all-time highs to the all-time lows, you see, if we elongate the whole process of Bitcoin or the whole history of Bitcoin, you do see a gradual step. Anytime it has exponential growth, it drops down from the previous all-time high and slowly goes up kind of like a ladder or, like a staircase, I would say. Same thing with Ethereum as of late. So, what I like to talk about the most in this situation is, yes, in the past, if we look at stocks and real estate, when, real estate goes high, the prices, correct itself by 20-30% afterwards. But my biggest concern in the space right now is not the fact of so many users and so many speculators are going in. In fact, I think it's healthy when you have speculators and each is to his own. If one person wants to invest money and they've done their due diligence, if they lose it, they lose it. That's on them. There shouldn't be a government coming in saying, hey, you can invest and you can't invest. If you want to spend your money and you're foolish enough to put your money in a stupid project and that project fails, well, guess what? You're liable for it. You're responsible for it. You shouldn't be pointing fingers at somebody else. You're the one that took out your wallet and gave money towards that project, okay? But what concerns me the most is the ICOs. The fact that literally I get emails every single day from people trying to pitch me ICOs. And I'm talking about they're trying to give away advisory positions. They're trying to give away pre-vetted tokens. They're trying to just do all this marketing and pre-promotion without even knowing you. Imagine, what does that say about a company? A company that's willing to give out advisory equity, advisory tokens for an individual they've never fucking met ever in their life. They're just giving away stuff towards them. That's a big red flag when it comes to any startup in general, whether that is an ICO startup, blockchain startup, or a regular, Silicon Valley e-commerce product startup. The biggest issue with the ICOs, and there's 100 a day coming out right now, is we have what people believe blockchain can do right now and what the reality is right now. I wrote an article not too long ago talking about the scalability issue. I will leave a link below this video. Even Vitalik right here, Vitalik states, he's just right now at the TechCrunch conference, the whole panel is talking about these ICO craze, and he told them point blank, listen, it looks like we're in a bubble. If we're looking at all these promises that the ICOs have, the reality is the blockchain tech, and 99% of them are created on Ethereum with an ERC20 token. They can't do what they promise because Ethereum can't do that yet. Ethereum has a very, very long time to go before it promises the scalability that people are talking about. Vitalik talks about it. If you just read this tweet, they need a 500x improvement on the whole protocol to deliver what these ICOs are promising. So just keep this in mind. People are, ICOs are raising hundreds of millions of dollars very quickly, but for what? What are they actually doing? The promises they make cannot be done yet. It's not doable. So that's one aspect. Second aspect is people are going to start waking up after a year or two from today and realize that the money they gave to these ICOs, nothing's coming from it. And there's another big problem with this. And the problem is, like, if you invest in an IPO or even angel investing, you as the investor, you have a lot of, let's say, accountability from the startup team. They're accountable to show you their financials. They're accountable to give you a voting right if you have that type of right. They're accountable for pretty much everything if you look at regular investing, and that's both from publicly traded companies and privately angel investing companies. The problem with the ICO right now, let's take technology out of the window or out of the conversation for a second, is it's these random people around the world who have a very beautiful website, who've done, so-so marketing, and people are bought up into it, and you give them your crypto, Ethereum or Bitcoin, and you get their token. They're literally not responsible or liable or accountable to you for anything. There's no legal contract. There's no nothing. So you've literally given maybe some kids around the world, I don't know how much money you ever give them, to do nothing. And that's an issue, man. That's a really big fucking issue when they're raising millions of dollars that they're not accountable to anybody, not accountable to investors, not accountable to their community, and there's no transparency whatsoever. And not to mention this, to keep this in mind too, like, remember, as a traditional investor, if you invest in a commodity, you have a physical, tangible asset. If you invest in startups, you have equity and you have a say, you have voting rights, etc. If you invest in a token, for the most part, the token is centralized. There's a big difference between tokens and cryptos, decentralized cryptos like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, Ethereum, etc., compared to certain tokens that are centralized and pretending to be a cryptocurrency, but all they are is an ERC20 token. And so you give these people money to literally control everything. They control the majority of the tokens. The whales control the majority of the tokens. They make deals with exchanges. There's so many, let me put it this way. There's so many different moving parts that people don't know about in this space. That a lot of people that just see the money increase, they get bought up into this hype and they give their money and they wonder what happened to it. And if you look at, historically speaking, majority of the ICOs the last year or so, they've peaked at the ICO and dropped drastically, about like 60% or so. So if you're looking at long-term investment, it's not the best investment. And in fact, if you're looking at like the craziness, just like I think in the last June or July, more than $500 million has been invested just alone in that month in ICOs. So, I think this craze of ICOs will continue maybe for another year or two, maybe less than 2 years, maybe a year and a half, where more money is going to be coming in, and then reality will set in and pop. And the pop, how is it going to look like? Who knows? A lot of these companies will run out of money because they're building products that make no sense. A lot of these companies that promise to do this, well, in reality, they can't do that because Ethereum or whatever blockchain they built it on can't fucking do it yet. So a lot of people will be in for a surprise the next year and a half. So my advice to you guys, be smart, do your due diligence. There's no such thing as like easy money overnight. Just really pay attention to what's happening in the industry. Pay attention to all the moving pieces and just use common sense. All right, guys. Peace. Oh yeah. By the way, if you have any comments or questions, leave a comment below this video. Peace.